Welcome to it, the Sunday Live Average Joe Sports Show. That is Gary Sharp. That is Bill Doleman. Doleman is not in a hostage situation. We are just looking for...
It looks like I'm trying to, be anonymous or something here.
Just blink twice, Bill, if you're safe, brother. but wait till halftime of Nebraska-Wisconsin to do it. That's Elijah Herbel. And he is, you in the den or you by just the living room window?
Dining room. Sitting here in
dining
the dining room.
Okay, dining room window.
That's why the acoustic sounds so good in here, is because it's a dedicated podcasting dining room.
I've been attempted to exile to the spare bedroom, but the acoustics are garbage in there. That's my claim. And you can see the Schmidt laundry behind us. Junior has successfully procrastinated since Thursday to put his clothes away. So we'll see if you get a yelling match between Mama and Junior. That is free. That is bonus. That is gravy for Sunday morning. But we'll get our shout outs going this morning, fellas. A lot of hoops on our mind, a lot of football later today. Sharp, you're repping the Chiefs gear. That's cool. Shakeups for Nebraska basketball, maybe so, lineup wise. See what happens today as Nebraska-Wisconsin tip-off here at 11. So there may be some commentary, not play-by-play, but commentary of how it goes. We have been not a good thing for Nebraska basketball Sunday mornings the last month or so, and we'll give a thought or two of a guy named Rocco. You want dudes named Rocco on your offensive line. What's the possibility of that? But always find us, like and subscribe to the Average Joe Sports Show on YouTube. Keep that number growing. Totally appreciate that when you search out and find us on YouTube with the Average Joe Sports Show, Spotify, iTunes for the podcast, and give us a follow on Twitter at the AJ Sports Pod. Bill, if we were to commandeer you and run to the sports book, what do you think? What do we settle in on here? 7.5 Nebraska underdogged for basketball today, fellas. Right now, it's just Washington keeping Nebraska from the basement in the Big Ten.
I'm like you guys. I was surprised to hear 7.5 because I thought it might be 17.5, given the way Nebraska wants to keep games. What are they, 40 and 5 over the last couple of years if the games are in the 60s. And now you've got Wisconsin, who's coming off a loss. But that was a game in the 80s against UCLA. And yeah, they are. I can't believe that with Chucky leaving Wisconsin, it's unleashed the Badger offense, right? I mean, he's having a good time down in Louisville, but this is not a typical Wisconsin team. And if they're coming off a loss and playing at home, and given where Nebraska's at right now, I'm glad the game's tipping off after we're going to be off the air, to be honest with you. But I'm surprised 7.5. I really thought it might be double digits given what's happened in Nebraska the last 5 games.
Yeah, it's the question is, can this be the game for Husker basketball to go Godfather 3? Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Is that the game today?
Beautiful.
It might be.
I don't think so. Maybe it is. Maybe it's the Connor siege and revenge game going back to Wisconsin and something clicks with this Husker offense. Maybe they tweak the lineup. I don't know. I don't see it right now, though. But that does also seem to be like the way it works with Fred sometimes at Nebraska, is like just when you think you're out on the team, oh, here comes February and they're going to start playing their best basketball and they reel you back in. That's the hope. In order for them to reel me back in, they need to get one of the next 3. They need to take down a ranked opponent for me to go, okay, you know what? Maybe this season isn't over just yet. You'd prefer maybe one of those wins is a ranked win on the road. And you say, okay, this team is feeling confident again. But right now it's just a team that's devoid of confidence. You're not sure how the leaders at the top are able to keep this team together through a rough stretch like this. It's just, I don't know. You need to see something to pull me back in, and I'm doubtful right now.
Yeah, that's I don't know, I have visions of last year up there where Wisconsin shot lights out, and of course they're more offensive prone this year. I don't know. To me, Nebraska basketball is cooked. They're going to win some games, but they are who they are, and they've got to have an extraordinary performance on defense with hustle plays and smart basketball to win a lot of games. I just think they're really disjointed. There's something going on, and it may be today the turning point where, Hoiberg realizes that, and guys that get paid a little NIL find their ass on the bench. And guys that play hard for them in practice and play hard in their limited minutes in games and make a difference are going to play. And so I'm very curious to see if we get a Sam Hoiberg and an Andrew Morgan that are inserted in the lineup, because there's no doubt those guys when on the floor, might not be the most talented of the 10 that are on the floor, but they play hard for you and they make winning plays. And right now, Nebraska is void of smart winning plays. And I also think they need to do something. They got they're two leaders here. So Juwan Gary, we all could see it coming the other night when he had the wide open three. We knew he was going to shoot. They were going to leave him open. Finally, he decided, you know what? I'm better when I get to the rim. And he plays a little bully ball, and he got to the rim, and he was successful. And then you have Bryce. I think Bryce's problem, we want Bryce so bad to be Alpha Bryce. We want him so bad to be all Big Ten. And there's a lot of things he does well. I don't think he plays well as the lead actor. I think he is better as a supporting actor, but a strong supporting actor, where he needs a good point guard to get Nebraska in the right spot on the floor and also to help him. Last year's roster was constructed really well, where Mast and Williams and Tominaga all could have their role. This year, it just seems they're still on one end of the floor searching for the identity. And, that's a tough thing because we're January 26th and you're all of a sudden outside of the bubble. So who knows what happened today? They're going to have to play really, really hard. They're going to have to play smart basketball. They're going to have to rebound. They're going to have to do it's almost like they're going to have to do a lot of things they haven't done consistently during this 5-game losing streak. If they but the next three, Elijah, as you were referring to, the next three are not kind. Today, Wisconsin on the road, at Illinois on Thursday, and we don't know where they're at, but I think they have some of the best upside in the league. And then you got to go to Eugene.
Well, and is it not concerning that we're in almost February and you don't know who your center is and you don't know who your point guard is? Like, that's what I look at when I look at this lineup. Like, is your point guard Raleigh? Is your point guard Ulis? I don't know which one fits the team better. It's February and we still aren't quite sure, kind of as a game-by-game basis. And then you look at the big man, Mia is doing well as a rebounding and as a post presence, but offensively so limited, kind of screws with the rhythm of the offense. You look at Morgan, doesn't have that same size, but plays hard. You don't know who your center is. You don't know who your point guard is, and it's damn near February.
Well, you've got two different styles at a point with, of course, Raleigh, and he's good to get his own shot, but there's been stretches, and it's not just a Raleigh problem, where guys say it's my turn to shoot. It's my turn to drive. And what I haven't seen this year in this streak is the ball. Fred always talks about ball movement, get it side to side and find the open dude. Well, sometimes the ball sticks, and there's been more times than not in some critical, let's grow the lead even more possessions that end up being empty possessions. And that no doubt, undoubtedly sparks the other team's comeback. And we've seen it the last few games. Saw it against SC when they were up 6, saw it against Rutgers when they were up 9. And yeah, I mean, you have roles early on. I thought, hold on, here comes the petting zoo. early on, you just were able to throw waves of bodies at teams that have big guys in the paint. Well, Nebraska's had a situation where some of the folks that they've invested in and brought in haven't been able to kind of live up to what they need to do. There's been minimal consistency in the turnovers, the 3-point shooting, the 3-point defense. It's all been problematic. And, Wisconsin's different. They are, let's score 85 a game. Let's play up tempo. It's not a ball control offense, for lack of a better term, where it's Wisconsin's going to hold you to 55 or 60 and they'll score 65. They're a different team now, and they're a problem. What do you get from a Seagen? You have two things that typically happen when you go home. Either you kill it or you try too hard and it's a bad day.
Hold on, before we talk about a Seagen, can we talk about the most average Joe laundry move ever? When Carson goes in and looks at that pile of laundry over Schmidt's shoulder, and instead of doing the laundry, he does what every one of us, every guy has ever done ever, and that's look for something that might be clean enough to wear for the rest of the day. Not do the laundry. Is there something here that might work for the rest of my day today? And I'm going to leave
like Cletus dirty shirt, said Johnny Cash.
Yeah. And then mom will do it. I'll take the yelling. That's okay. I just found what I need. I'll see you later and take the heat. That was such an average Joe move by Carson over Schmidt's shoulder. So anyway, you want to talk about Connor Seager.
That's a little more interesting than hoops. Because right now we're waiting on whether Mama comes out of the bedroom with a tire iron or not and goes downstairs.
I also like
the
Big
Brother episode, right? You got the camera in the corner watching to see what move's going to be made. That was classic.
I like the pro move as well of leaning some of the clothes over the handrail so they're not all bunched up in a pile. That way that doesn't get all wrinkly. So you can look at it and go, well, it's not wrinkled, it's not folded. It's the best of both worlds.
Those are mine.
That's why you're a pro.
Those are mine. They've also been hanging up there since Thursday.
That was class. There you go. That just walk around on by
right fast.
He's gonna
sorry to distract, but I was
gonna further
watching the game within the game.
Grenade pin and unleash the dogs into the bedroom and then just take off to the garage. And he just says, "Yep, that's what I just did." It's point of no return. He's already in for it. So all right, we'll get our shout outs going. That's enough reality TV at the Schmidt house. JB checks in. Well, today goes to hell. At least there's only 19 days till baseball season. There you go, JB. Baseball is around the corner. Kobe, you are echoing that. Baseball can't get here soon enough. That's too bad. There was excitement, and there still may be, but you're teetering right now with your investment for Nebraska basketball, and that's sad. And I'm not judging. I'm saying it's too bad because there were some hopes for this basketball team, and they still have a chance. A lot of basketball left to fix it. There's just not a lot of faith based on the schedule in the league that it gets fixed. Coach Brandon's here. He is off to Nashville. I would love to go to Nashville at some point again. Brent is here. Mike and Callie is checking in. Mike, good to have you. Walter from Philly. I guess the Philly mayor misspelled the Eagles during the Eagles rally.
Yes.
Wow. Brian Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, is here. He is also saying, can we shift to baseball if things go as expected? Mike is here. Patrick is in. Justin, Steve, good to have y'all. Arlo checking in as well. Captain is here. What are Nebraska fans' expectations in Nebraska basketball? I guess to quote Mr. T-Pain today. So there we have it. More of you coming up here as we continue to wind through an hour.
And there's some interesting questions here most recently in the comments. I do want to get your guys' thoughts on kind of talking about the roster construction side of Nebraska basketball. Are we starting to reach the point where we're doubting the turnover of the roster via the portal every single year? There's Justin here saying, need to stop relying on the portal. Fred needs to get guys he can develop. And you got Kobe saying there's zero development going on in the basketball program currently. Like, I don't, there's interesting guys. And you look back at Nebraska basketball through the years, I see recruits in Nebraska that I think are interesting and could work. We've watched Lazarick Houston a couple of times, Schmidt, and you look at that guy and say, I mean, yeah, stature-wise, he's a little shorter than you like from a D1 player. But
don't care. He gets to the rim. He can hit threes. Good luck checking him.
You look at Bryson Ball up in Omaha, and you say, not only does he have some Husker roots with his sister, but it's a guy
he's not a Big Ten player.
Not a Big Ten player.
That's just it.
He can fill it up.
What's that cutoff? Right?
So,
what's a Big Ten player? And you're
so
right.
Here's the thing with Fred. Like, Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary have gotten better since they got into Nebraska's program. They just haven't taken the jump from last year. The one thing that I disagree with Fred, and I actually asked him about a year ago before last season, Fred, Nebraska really needs to develop high school guys. Because under Fred, there really has not been any high school guy that has come into the program, stayed here for a while, and developed. Like Jankowski. I like him. I think he's a really good shooter. We have no idea what he's going to do. I don't have any expectations for Frager. Okay. I think Frager will be in the portal at some point in his career. But Nebraska needs to get a high school kid or 2 or 3 or 4 that they develop and they play here for 2 or 3 years. But Fred's philosophy has always been he cares more about the top 7 in his rotation than he does about the bottom 6 or 7. So he's always going to focus on those guys. Nebraska also, they missed on some guys they swung for the fences on during the portal season. You know, they were aggressive with their cash and they just couldn't close the deal. I mean, I keep going back. William Kyle III from Bellevue West, who was at South Dakota State, should be at Nebraska. But he was swayed by UCLA. You know, he would make a huge difference. He would be here and Mia would not. So you've been dealt the roster that you went after. It's just the guy from Rutgers. Hello. The guy from UCLA. But you spent a lot of money on Burke. I mean, you are not getting your return on investment for the amount of money that they spent on him. I mean, they just have – this has been a bad portal cycle. But, guys, last year we're going, man, they got this guy from Charlotte. They got this guy from Bradley. It's unbelievable. So this is a year where, you know, I think it's gone sideways and they're getting exposed. People have tape on them. They're playing better teams. But, my God, the basketball IQ is incredibly bad. Like dribble into a crowd, get confused on closeouts or rotations or switches, or the end of the game the other night. I'm sitting there, guys, and you could see it. I probably could see it on TV, but at the end of the shot clock, end of the game, Claude for USC. We've seen this before. Top of the key, he's got nowhere to go except for shoot a 3. And who is late on a lazy closeout? And you should have known that that's the only shot he's really going to take. Berke. And Nebraska's paying for it. But I think, you know, last year we loved Fred and he did some really good things. This year his portal guys haven't been bangers, and Williams and Gary haven't taken that next jump that they need. And then you go, man, wouldn't this team look good with kind of like glue guys like Wilcher and Jamarcus Lawrence? It's a weird stretch you're in when you've lost 5 in a row and there's nobody there to pull the parking brake.
Also at the end of the game and the IQ, and I like Bryce Williams a lot. I told Schmidt a couple of weeks ago, he reminds me a little bit of a Trevor Ariza that we had in Houston when I was doing Rocket stuff. You know, not the main guy, but just really, you know, solid, come up with a big shot every now and then, and kind of the same build.
Totally capable.
But not the guy. And if you go into those final moments of the final play against USC, the jumping up from Gehring and then throwing the ball away instead of shooting. Tominaga, if he'd had the ball in his hand in that moment, would have pulled up from Gehring and taken the shot, right? And I'm talking about the map, you know, the map on the court back in the day. But
is that the issue?
They would not have been afraid to shoot in that moment, and Bryce was looking to pass when he should be the alpha, and that's the difference between he should have grown, as Gary was saying, grown into that role that it appeared he had through the non-conference season. But we also have to go back to the non-conference, and Nebraska's non-conference schedule was user-friendly. And for the most part, they took care of it. Should have beaten St. Mary's, who's a good basketball program. But Bryce shined against that level of opponent. And in that moment, though, against USC, when he's got the ball in his hands with 2.5 seconds to go, it should have been, I have the ball in my hands and I'm going to take the shot. And instead he jumps up and throws it away. And I know he was despondent after the game, and that's great. It took responsibility, all that. But that tells you that there is the difference between that player you can rely on that Nebraska just doesn't appear to have right now, and maybe didn't have on the roster this season.
Well, is the issue as opposed to roster construction? Bill, you talk about the state map on the court. Is the issue with Husker basketball that they took that away? Is that why the home court advantage has gone away? Should never have been taken away. I love the outline on the court.
Bring back the state logo.
And maybe going to red end zones for football will take some monkey off the back. Maybe the red end zones will be the solution that Nebraska football needed.
It's just fascinating what a player's personality is on the court, right? When it gets to winning time, there's no way you're getting the ball back from Tominaga if you would have passed it to him. He's going to weave around, get a couple of screens, and then launch, and it would go in miraculously.
I think Gary is willing to take that shot.
Yes, he is.
But is he the guy that you want to take that shot? And he opened up the game against USC, as Gary, I think that's what you're alluding to, Gary. First play of the game, there's a 3-pointer, it's open, and Gary took it.
0 for 4, dude. Start.
He'll take it,
Yeah.
And then maybe that's what Bryce was looking for. I know Juwan wants to take this shot, and probably it should be a Seagen or something. I think that's what we expected coming into this season, but in that microcosm, that was Bryce's season where he's at right now. Nebraska's basketball IQ, who's the confident shooter, who's the guy in the moment, and Nebraska doesn't have it right now. And I don't know how you develop that going forward.
Yeah, they have some things that they can't overcome, regardless if they win a couple of games here or there. They don't have a lot of athleticism. The problem is Nebraska really doesn't have anybody that can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim, like off the dribble and beat somebody. Mm-hmm. And Bryce can't. If you look at last year, one of the things Nebraska did really well, and we like the aura of Casey grows because Casey was so active and he was cutting and moving that he opened up the floor for the rest of the guys. Now, Nebraska last year had at least 3 shooters on the floor at all times. This year, they have 1, maybe. But the thing about Bryce is last year they ran a lot of actions for him where he came off like a high ball screen or a pin down, where it wasn't put the ball in Bryce's hands in ISO and let him go to the rim. He was catching it and shooting it, or he was catching it in a position where he could make a play and he immediately didn't get defended. Because the one thing you notice about Bryce, and this is going to happen because everybody's got film now in the Big Ten, if you are aggressive and you get up in the grill of Bryce Williams when he has the basketball, he's more than likely going to hand it to you. So you can't give him space. It's just they're in a weird spot, but there's a lot of things that have been here since day one that when you play hard and you play smart on defense and guys and teams don't hit threes against you, you look good. But when you're in between of should I close out, should I double in the post on one end of the floor, and then you're trying to find that go-to guy at the end of the game, all of these things add up. And I don't know how Fred waves the magic wand to get out of this because it's a little bit of his own doing on how they constructed the roster. It's just they've got to play so hard and they have such a small margin for error on both ends of the floor to win a basketball game. And, who would have thunk we're sitting here, Nebraska might even make the Big Ten tournament, for God's sake.
I go back to the roster construction too, and I mentioned this on Chris and Elijah's show the other day, brilliantly. That
sprinkle that in.
Look, Nebraska right now is a victim of where it's programmed. Basically almost historically now in the transfer portal era, and you have a turnover of 9 guys on the roster. When Fred made the transformation from the kind of team he thought he was going to program he was going to have, nope, I got to be a little more defensive minded. We got to lead the league in floor burns. We got to play with, Sam's heart to a certain extent within his personality. And we got to dial it back and be a little bit more rugged. That's a development. You've got to create that identity, and you hope to have a core of players, at least 4 or 5, that are with you year after year, and then you complement the new guys coming in so that every year you've got that core of 4 or 5, maybe 6, and then 7 who get this is the way we play. And you bring in the guys who want to play that way, who can play that way. But when it's 9 in, you play with them, try to get them to buy into what you want to do, and then you get to the Big Ten season, and then 9 out, and it's a new 9 next year. Because Nebraska is going to have a lot of turnover. And the level with which they're turning the roster over, it's not like they're getting the guy to leave who's guys who are at Arizona and Oregon and Louisville or whatever. They're getting and God loves Charlotte and Bradley and some places like that, but they're not getting the high tier transfer guy to come in and play for a couple of seasons. It is hockey line shifts, and there's no continuity in developing a culture. It reminds me in a way of when Barry Collier got the Nebraska job back in, when was that, the late 90s, early 2000s, it escapes me now. But Barry Collier gets the job, and Jim Eldridge also got the job at Kansas State. And when the NCAA had power, which it actually did, boys and girls, they instituted this 5-8 rule. You could not recruit more than 5 players in 1 year and no more than 8 players in 2 years. And so when you had players transfer out or graduate, and you are stuck with 5 total scholarships trying to build a program and 8 over 2 years. So you could go 3 and 5 or 4 and 4. And there's no way to build a program that way. And the same with Nebraska basketball right now in the transfer portal era. If you're shuffling them in and shuffling them out and year after year, there is no continuity to develop a culture. And that's what Nebraska is facing right now. And I would bet they've got 8 new guys on the roster at minimum next year. And you might have this same cycle.
I don't agree about the culture thing, because last year they were really good. The problem they've run into this year is they have some guys that made some good money in the portal that haven't come through. And I don't know that a culture thing. I think that's a locker room thing, that those guys have to play better, and they haven't played better, and they're relying on them. I don't know. It's a weird team. They're in a rough stretch. They've lost 5 in a row. I thought, after Maryland, where they still had some issues, but they played hard, and Fred pushed the right button. It's just they're swimming in it, and they don't have that guy that can go up to Madison today and hit you for 40 and single-handedly win the game. You would think it's Bryce. Maybe it's Bryce, but I don't. I think Bryce at this moment needs somebody else with him. I mean, they're just in a weird spot. And I go back to this, guys, is when the UCLA stretch started, and UCLA and then the next 7 games after that, Ken Pomeroy, which is pretty spot on, said Nebraska's going to lose 6 of 8, but they'll still find a way to win 19. And we all went, "Oh, you are crazy." Meteorologist guy, go back to counting the weather and not hoops. Well, he's kind of spot on. I mean, it's really weird. They need a performance today. They actually need a break. They need something good go for them, and they probably need, like I said, an out of this world performance by somebody that just is unconscious, and they're hitting threes and driving to the hole and getting to the line. And that's another thing about Bryce is we've all said this, all 4 of us. When Bryce is playing well, Bryce spends a lot of time 15 feet from the basket, standing at a line and shooting a free throw.
No, that's key. And you go back, we reference UCLA, the last feel good time for this program, and they didn't score. They field goal the final 7 minutes. But what Bryce do? Bryce and Nebraska hit 13 out of 15 free throws those final 7 minutes. That was their offense, because they got to the rim, they got to the line, they got fouled, and they took advantage of the bonus situation. So we may or may not jump in with some commentary while things tip off in Madtown here shortly. Billy D, what do you want to say?
My other suggestion also is, look, since there are no rules in sports anymore, I think Nebraska needs to set the tone and do something unique. Since Jimmy Butler wants out of Miami, I think Nebraska tries to make a trade with Miami and bring in Jimmy Butler, find a couple of years of eligibility in the transfer portal. I know they want to finish the Sand Hills Global Youth Complex, but maybe we pull some funds out of that and give it to Butler for the last part of the year. He can shoot all the 1-footed 3-pointers he wants, but what the hell? Let's give it a shot, Nebraska. Just redefine college and pro basketball. Let's blur the lines completely. Bring in Jimmy Butler for the next 6 weeks, and let's just see what happens.
Yeah, on a side note, with the glorious Sand Hills Global Youth Complex,
I was trying to make a transition to baseball, perhaps, but anyway.
We are, and we're big fans of Jeff Mull. Visit Lincoln, awesome folks. The folks at Sand Hills are awesome, and I'm so thankful for this next new wave of parents, all in my neighborhood, that have little ones that don't have to travel now. They don't have to get up at 6 a.m. and go grab a soggy slice of breakfast pizza and a coffee and BFE, because guess what? We had to travel somewhere on a 10 times better baseball diamond for years and years and years. I love the travel ball era, right? But it was a lot of miles, a lot of hotel rooms, and a lot of coolers. We had a great parent group. but bring that income, bring that tourism, bring that travel to Lincoln, and the youth center is going to do that. That's awesome. Just my kid's graduating in 2 months, so a little late. A little late. Let's we'll get baseball going in 2 seconds. I want to talk real quick though, football and portal with the dude named Rocco Spindler, right guard at Notre Dame, a guy that pretty high level recruit that did some time. I know I say did some time, and Rocco, forgive me, but he played really well for Notre Dame as a backup that came in and kept that starting right guard spot. He is in the portal and is kind of doing the tour. He's looking at Michigan. That was his number 2 choice out of high school. You have the fact that Nebraska is in this, along with Virginia, Pitt. And you know what? We talk about the offensive tackles. Nebraska is trying to land one more. We know that there's Evans at the guard spot. We know that we like Sledge at the center spot, but Nebraska can't stand pat, fellas. If they deem a guy like Spindler worthy of adding to the offensive line, go get him. Can Nebraska go get another win out of the portal on the offensive line? Because there's a guy that helped get a team to the national championship game that's available.
Well, and it's not just Spindler. I think you're also looking at Coogan as well.
Yes,
the center. So both guys that were thrust in to Notre Dame's lineup because of injury. It would appear likely that they're going to be in a position battle come spring and fall, and their playing time's not guaranteed. So the exciting thing about either of those is the flexibility it gives you with Justin Evans to put him where you want to put him. Where if it's Coogan, you can keep Evans at guard, you can keep him pulling. If it's Spindler, I think now you can move Evans back to center, which is the position you brought him to Nebraska for. He's done really well as a guard, that pulling ability. But if you think he's a center, maybe more projectable there at the next level, you do right by him and bring in a massive 6'5", 330-pound guard to come in and clean things up for you there. Either way, it's guys that it feels like Nebraska was going to have to miss out on in terms of interior offensive line. The transfer portal, you swung and missed, but now you get some late additions and you get a chance to go make a run at these guys. I mean, you need one, right? It feels like Nebraska is still a piece or two away on the offensive line. It feels like you need one of these two.
Yeah, I think, timing is everything. Elijah, I agree with you. Nebraska has some money left over to spend on a tackle. They swung for the fences on Pete. They went pretty high. Kentucky went even higher. So they have some money, and they have open spots. I mean, look at these guys are late to the party because of playing in the national championship game, and it actually may turn out to benefit Nebraska. But is it just money? How they beat out Michigan? Kentucky beat out Michigan and Nebraska. So I think Nebraska will be aggressive, but it would, are you guys comfortable if we go into spring and it's Gatula, Pritchett, Teddy, and Turner are your top 4 tackles, and then throw in Segrin, whatever they decide with Bricks, if he's going to play guard or tackle? Are you comfortable with the top 4 that have played the most college football going into 2025? If they don't add anybody?
I need another addition just because of the injury history with Teddy and Turner.
Right there with you.
And you want him to go out with a bang. You want him to have an injury-free season where it all comes together for him, because they can still play ball. I mean, I'd be excited to see Turner get a season where he is able to stay healthy, settles at a spot, and does his thing, because I think there's talent there. Same with Teddy. And I like Bricks and I like Segrin as well, but are they, if they're forced into duty or they win the job, let's say it that way, are they able to go as first-time starters all season long and make a difference? And maybe they are, but right now you heard Dana talk a few weeks ago about, we got to go get some guys, right? So they are seasoning some of the kids that have a ton of upside right now, and we all know it's a marathon, not a sprint with the offensive line position when guys actually get ready and are able to go. So the blessing about having a portal right now is you can go add those pieces if you're not quite ready to put in some guys that have been kind of grinding away. And right now, you have the ability to go get that guard in the center that you're talking about, and then add them in and just, all right, here's your depth. Here's some depth. And if you got to play the young guys, so be it, but don't have to force them into it right away.
Well, those guys got to be ready to play, whether it's who you're going to bring in or who you've had in the program. And I go, especially with the injury issues that we've seen with Teddy and with Turner. And again, that's the 105 player, roster limit. That's where that comes into effect. If you're Matt Rhule, like I have 2 tackles at a very key position that are injury prone. So how much depth and how much do I have to invest, I guess, both in personnel and now financially, in having players that I think I have more confidence in that they can last the season? Because right now you have 2 that may not make it through. It's one thing if Teddy gets hurt and you go, okay, well, Turner, you're the guy. Well, geez, now Turner got hurt. That's what happened last year.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the 105 is problematic. Now, a Bricks, for example, I think came as a guard, and I believe that his future has been penciled in, if not pinned in, as a tackle. But you got to have guys like Evans who can play 1 or 2, or 2 or 3 positions along the line. This dude, the 2 dudes you're talking about, can they play 2 positions? Now you're going to have versatility in your line play with a 105 roster limit. And Nebraska, that's fragile right now. I love Teddy Prohaska. Everybody does. But do we think he's going to make it in and you're saving a 105 spot for him? And you are, because you got to be loyal to the guy. He's been, through so much. But you have a coveted 105 spot and a 104 spot for 2 guys that have not made it through. So you got to have versatility on who you're going to bring in, somebody that can play 2 or 3 positions on the line. Yeah. That's the fact. That's why they need club football at Nebraska.
You need that it is NFL light. You need a guy that can play a guard, tackle him. You need your swing spot. You need a guy that can play 2 or 3 spots on the roster.
2 or 3 guys that can play 2 or 3 spots at a high level.
Good luck and God bless, man.
Right.
That's a big ask.
Right.
At the college level.
But that's where that's what they've created for themselves. You've got to have guys that can play multiple and not just be really serviceable.
I think Nebraska had 2 on roster last season. You lose 1 because Mazuka was a guy that kind of played all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure you wanted him to play all over the place, but that's what his role became as the season went on.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very helpful for Nebraska last season to have a guy in Mazuka be able to do that. You saw him play guard. You saw him play tackle. Could have been utilized more, in my opinion, but hey, that's last season's last season. So you look to the future and you have Evans. I'm kind of with Bill here. You're kind of lacking other options of guys that can swing around and play different places for you. Spindler kind of seems to fit that bill, in my opinion, more than Coogan as a guy that can play all over the offensive line for you. That's why I think that could be an interesting addition.
Well, lastly, with the projections here, Tamu is a young guy that you're kind of waiting on. Bricks for sure. And then a guy that just got to campus that they like from Hawaii. Is it Torres? Help me out here. Is that? Yeah, they really like his upside at center. But Sharpie, I want to get your take here on availability for Sledge and just what you think is possible, not excessive for him this spring and moving forward into the fall.
Well, kind of what Elijah and Bill were referring to is guys that could play multiple positions. He could be a guard or a center for you.
Okay.
I think he'll be your opening day center.
Okay.
I mean, I think he's a really good player who, they've handled him the right way. He got to play a little bit last year as he's gotten the physicality part of it taken care of. I mean, he was really good at Creighton Prep. His dad was an all Big 8 offensive lineman. There's a lot of DNA there. He's very smart, so he knows the game, and that's why I say center, because he's somebody that could get everybody on the same page. We really didn't have to worry about center the last 2 years with Ben Scott. Ben Scott quietly just came to Nebraska and had a 2-year career, and we didn't really talk a ton about him. There was nothing really bad. There was some good, but it's that center position. Unless you're Cam Jurgens, I guess, of late, or all the way back to a Jake Young, Dave Remington type, the center position just kind of comes and goes. And I think Sam would slide right in there and play well. I think that would be less disruption on the line. See, I like Justin Evans as a guard.
Same.
And he can also play center, but I like him more as a guard, and I think Sam could play center. And, and there's another guy on this offensive line, if we're just talking about the interior, he's played a lot of football, but has he reached his ceiling, or is there another level for Lutovsky?
Right.
Who, the three guys that I just mentioned might be, your top three candidates to start on the interior offensive line as of right now, before spring begins and we see more guys.
Guy that's been in the program for a lot of years, man. Waited his turn and needs to.
It seems like he's been here forever.
Right. Oh, he has been. Yeah. He's not quite pre-COVID recruiting class, but it kind of feels like it.
Yeah, I think the whole offensive line discussion, and we're all offensive line coaches. We come out of the womb and they put a whistle around our neck and they're like, "Can you be the next Milt Tenniper, Dan Young?" But what does, under the previous offensive coordinator, he had no confidence in the offensive line. He also had no real great relationship with Donnie. Now Holgorsen comes in. Holgerson's a smart man. He realizes my guys are going to throw it and they're going to catch it and they're going to run it, but they're not going to do anything if the big boys up front aren't blocking. So I think they're more in tune. And you saw the result of having confidence in the offensive line. All of a sudden, guys on that offensive line in the last 4 games or so, you went, where was that at? So Does that carry over to another season because they trust the guy calling plays, because he trusts them? If they need to get 3rd down and 2, they're not going to throw the ball. They're going to run the ball because those guys up front can get them. And I'll tell you, with offensive linemen, that goes a long way. If you have confidence that they can get you 3 or 4 yards when you need 3 or 4 yards in a tough situation, when everybody in the ballpark knows you're going to run, and the offensive coordinator says, "It's on you, I got your back," man, that does go a long way. And I think you saw that when Holgorsen took over.
Andrew makes a comment here, and there's linemen all around. And I remember this comment as well, Andrew, about Rhule talking you and I. Their offensive line was good, did a hell of a job moving Nebraska on that opening drive. And yeah, there's dudes everywhere. Can you find the right guys, get them to campus? And you want to see a glimpse for sure of that last 4-game spurt from the Nebraska offensive line where they were moving people, where the line of scrimmage on the short yardage situations went the right way. If you're a Nebraska fan, you moved the defensive line back, you got push, and you saw the running backs and offensive line working in unison. And you saw what you hadn't seen for a while in the run game, where it was dependable and it was physical, and it helped out your quarterback. It helped out your passing game. So we're going to see how things move forward in the spring, or moving towards the spring with that unit, because it's got to be nails, man. It's got to be really good with that mix of portal, the old long-tooth graybeard veterans, and then the young kids you've brought in, and flipping it around. You've got some big-time holes to fill on the defensive side in that front as well. So portal season never sleeps. It has been well documented early on the Average Joe Sports Show this morning that it is. Go ahead.
Can I throw one thing in here? And Elijah has alluded to this, is, kind of what we were just talking about with Holgorsen and having faith in the 11 that are on the field and not just focusing on the quarterback. I think we're in a good spot where the people that are running the position groups on the offensive side, I think will be more in tune with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think everybody was on the same page. If you look at like play calls that were being made, especially in the running game, and it didn't seem like the right running back was on the field. I think we'll see a difference where everybody on that side of the ball on the headset, they're all on the same page in knowing this is the personnel that should be out there for this series of plays. And I think that'll go a long way as well. And that starts at the top. When you have a coordinator that demands respect and is a good communicator, then I think that goes a long way. I think that was one of Satterfield's downfalls.
And I think where that begins is during the week of practice, where coaches are going to be able to communicate and be on the same page with their prep, so that when Saturday rolls around, it's not a case of two different coaches having two different ideas what should be done in a certain game scenario. Everyone will be on the same page Monday through Friday to begin. That's where that starts, and you can read in between the lines with what I mean there. There's just going to be that you know what, coaches are actually going to meet up and discuss their ideas, and they are going to get on the same page if they aren't. Whereas before it was everyone free for all might not be the right word, but
no, you had your passing game guys, you had your run game guys, and guess what? They never sat at the big old conference table to put a plan together.
Well, you've got a head coach. You have a head coach of the offense, and look, Satterfield survived. We weren't sure we would be here, and he'd be around, and he's going to have the tight ends. So maybe that's enough responsibility for him that he can do a nice job with Nebraska's tight ends and coach his position and get him acclimated to whatever offensive head coach Dana Holgorsen wants. And he doesn't have the responsibilities, and he can just focus on coaching a position. But look, I'm going to watch the tight end position closely next year. It's kind of Nebraska not being Iowa, but is sort of tight end U-ish. Certainly the state of Nebraska has developed some tight ends in recent years. So that's a position that is going to, you figure it's going to be a large part of what Nebraska wants to do offensively, given the players that they have, the athleticism that they have at that position. Satterfield survived, right? He has to work. He's just got to work with Holgorsen, and I hope it's a fruitful position for Nebraska, but I'm surprised that there wasn't a change made, but that's loyalty too, right there.
Yeah, and maybe it's to a fault. You talk about the loyalty. Satterfield, as it would appear right now, seems to be getting another year on this Nebraska staff. And as we talk about loyalty, I know it's been widely reported Foley's out the door. I wouldn't be too surprised if he quietly slides back into a recruiting role and it's not announced and you don't see it on Twitter, but then you're looking come next fall and you're like, oh, Ed Foley's at a Nebraska high school football game doing some work right now. I think I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah, and so people are, a lot of people are wondering what's going on with special teams. It's a priority, and Rhule's going to speak this week, so maybe there'll be some news, but they don't need somebody on the road recruiting because they have other guys that aren't technically part of the on-field, I guess, assistant coaches. I don't know what they call them these days. So those, like a Mosey is out on the road recruiting. So they don't need to hire a coach because they need somebody out recruiting. So it hasn't been like priority from that standpoint, but I think we're getting close to Nebraska wrapping that up. So I wonder what Rhule will talk about this week, because people will ask about Satterfield, like what's his adjustment in salary? Is there a different role? Those kind of things. And to Elijah's point, I think Ed Foley is still on the website. They take players off there that like no more Alex Bullock is on the website, Lieben Tritt, but Ed Foley, I think is, as of Friday, I think is still on the website.
And doesn't Nebraska have a target or perceived target at special teams coordinator whose contract doesn't end until the 26th? Eckler.
What are you talking about, Mike Eckler?
Yeah. Doesn't his contract at Tennessee goes through like next week sometime, which I suppose you can speculate that maybe that's the reason why there hasn't been any news. Maybe not, but that's what we're here for.
I don't know. I know that Lincoln is not for everybody. Living in Lincoln is not for everybody as an assistant coach. If you've been there one time, sometimes it's tough to come back because you know what you're getting into.
Ask Bob Wager.
Well, I think that's a legit thing is, Terrence Knighton, Lincoln wasn't for him. Nebraska was for him, but Lincoln wasn't for him.
See, that's interesting because Lincoln's got the biggest shields in the world. You telling me it's not for everybody?
Wow. I knew that was coming.
You.
Val's, Runza,
Lazari's.
The new San Diego Youth Complex.
It's just free shout out Sunday. You can get your business in. The small investment.
I think when you're like a football coach at Nebraska, and especially the head coach, you have to embrace the passion of Nebraska. Like, you can't be turned off by it. Like, you have to do your research getting into it, know that people here, they care about the product. They're there to help you. Use them as an asset, not as a default. but you are it. You're the show, and everybody knows your name, and everybody knows where you live, and everybody knows what your family and where they shop. So, I think Rhule, he's finding out how big of a job this is, but he, for the most part, has embraced being the head coach at Nebraska. Scott, because he was here one time and he knew what you're going to get into, he never, in my opinion, embraced being the head football coach at Nebraska, and Rhule has done that. But I think it also goes for assistant coaches, because in most places, a lot of places, you don't even know the names of the assistant coaches. Here, we know everything about them. For God's sake, they used to talk to the media all the time, not just coordinators, but position coaches. And we knew everything about them. And you had more access to assistant coaches in Nebraska than anywhere else. So when I say it's not for everyone, that can be a turnoff of, oh my gosh, I mean, this is hello. I mean, I'm the assistant wide receiver coach, and everybody knows when I walk into Hy-Vee. Not necessarily for everybody.
I think we now know that Gary has outed himself as the person who came up with the slogan, Nebraska, it's not for everyone, for the Nebraska Tourism Board.
God,
They
that was
have
such
a
a
bat-
awful slogan. That was such an awful slogan. I'm glad that came and went.
They have a bat line to Mr. Sharp.
Gary,
But don't you guys also wonder?
It's not for everyone if you're an assistant football coach, and they thought we'll just drop off that last part of the phrase and we'll go with that. Thank you.
Don't you think, like Marcus Freeman, like it always seemed like Brian Kelly was fighting being the head coach at Notre Dame? Like Marcus Freeman, and granted, it's still early. He's in the third year, and they've had success, and they've just finished runner-up this year. But it seems like at places like blue blood, big, passionate programs, you can't fight being the head coach. You took the job for a reason. You have to accept the attention that goes with it, and the pressure and the expectations, and lean into it instead of running away from it. And I look at Marcus Freeman, and someone made the comment, I think last Sunday they were doing I was on a podcast I was just dropped in on, and they're like, Marcus Freeman was the right choice for Notre Dame because he gets the job. He understands how big of a job and a beast that is, and uses it to his advantage, not his disadvantage. And I'm like, yeah, look at football coaches at Nebraska. When you're not necessarily winning, and it doesn't matter, it seems like, but when you're just kind of moving along. We've had a lot of coaches of late that fight being the head coach at Nebraska. It's nice to have a head coach that likes being at Nebraska.
Well, and you got 1,000% correct with the use it to your advantage. Build up the equity, the goodwill for sure on the field with wins. But if you're struggling in that aspect, or it's not happening as quickly as you'd like, case in point, we went out last weekend, fam did, caught up with my brother kind of between Omaha and Lincoln, and we're there eating dinner, and Rhule's in the corner. Okay. And, place is kind of clearing out. It's a little bit after 9, and Rhule's standing there as it's a receiving line, dude. It's like he's at a wedding, right? And the bus boys, and they looked 12. I'm not here to get anyone in trouble, but they looked too young to be working, but they were of age because, my wife said, hey, do you have ID? That was nice of her. But to a dude, I mean, we're talking adults, we're talking kids, folks are flocking to Rhule, and he's with his wife, and he's there with a couple other folks, and he's trying to get out. And the party he was with took off. He's there till everyone got a picture. Every last one got a picture, smiling, and just gets it. And that's, yeah, you're air quote supposed to do that, but folks, to your point, Sharpie, fight it from time to time just because they want to. But he gets it, man, and he is so good at that part of things with the PR and well, he's genuine. I mean, he's talking to the 12-year-olds. Hey, how are you guys doing? Or 15-year-olds, sorry, but he's talking to the young guys because he knows that's the next wave of Nebraska fans. Or if there's any glimmer of doubt, if they want to cheer for their home state team, well, that interaction is going to reinforce. Well, that dude, it's a head football coach in Nebraska taking a picture with me and my brother. That was cool. Well, Uncle Mark did not go crowd him, just for the record, nor did Carson. There is a picture of Carson, though, that will show up with Mike Riley at an Italian restaurant from 1,000 years ago. Riley was good about being friendly.
Yes,
as well.
he was. But like the one thing I'll give to Rhule, and Rhule has turned into one of the best PR coaches for that has ever coached at Nebraska. Look at his stuff that he did with Feinbaum this week. Yeah, he always seems to push the right button. He's reached a stage, and there's a lot of pressure on year 3. I mean, this ain't Temple year 3. This ain't Baylor year 3. This is Nebraska year 3, and you got to win some football games. You got to win more than 7 football games. But you get people like they appreciate that you represent the state in good fashion. And so I hear more than any recent coach, man, I just want Nebraska to win for Rhule because he gets it. He's one of us. I don't know. It's a strange thing we have here in this fan base. But it's nice to have a coach that gets that as well, because people want to win so bad here, and no one should want to win more than the head coach. But I think, the alignment, you can use it to your advantage, and definitely with, you've had a nice offseason so far. You can use it to your advantage in year 3. Now, that goodwill can only take you so far until that goodwill is gone. And around here, when you lose the goodwill, you're done. I mean, this fan base ain't saying, okay, they're like, no, you're out. You're out. We're gone. We're on to the next.
That goodwill, though, can extend the hearts and minds a little bit longer, too, which is a reality.
Part of that goodwill kind of goes back to the assistant coach role and life at Nebraska. And look, I wasn't around for much of the Bo, the Riley, and all of that because I was in parts unknown. But I remember when, go back in the day, and Gary, you probably did many of these shows. Tom had his weekly radio show on KLIN, but Tom's deal was, I'll do the first one and I'll do the last one, and in between, you'll do one with every assistant coach, so they get however much money was paid, weekly for them to make an appearance, because that sweetened the pocket a little bit for those guys, made them want to stick around. Tom did a lot of speaking engagements, but he made sure that the assistant coaches also did speaking engagements, because that gave them goodwill in the community. They enjoyed it, and it gave them a little bit of extra money in their pocket. So Nebraska football coaches, for that 40-year period from Devaney through Osborne, assistant coaches were elevated to a position of prominence and personality and profile, and people got to know them. They were great ambassadors. There was nobody better to go to the Brunswick in Shickley or Fairbury or wherever than Milt Tenneper. There was nobody better to go up and go to a white collar dinner in Omaha at Exarban than Frank Solich, right? So they had profiles and they were interviewed. I was taken aback when Scott took the job, and the only assistant coaches that spoke were the coordinators. You never heard from the assistant coaches. Now, primarily each week with Matt Rhule, you hear from the 2 coordinators, but they've had press conferences with the assistants. So people feel a little bit like they know Donnie Raiola, and they feel like they know, they knew Garrett McGuire and Rob Dvorak and whatnot. And he's made sure that they've had their press conference and they've met the media, and people feel like they know them, and they've been good ambassadors, including Ed Foley. But when it was just Scott and Mark Whipple, who had zero personality or desire to even be connected to the state, or Eric Shenander, nice guy, but that was it. It was like, those are the only coaches that we feel like we know. And then you have Scott Frost, who doesn't exactly endear yourself with an engaging personality, right? He was so guarded. So you go back and, oh my God, of all the coaches who really established a relationship with the state of Nebraska, people aren't going to remember the name John Melton, but he did a Cornhusker football show on Nebraska ETV forever, and people felt like John Melton was their favorite uncle.
Yeah.
Right? So if Matt Rhule can have those coaches be ambassadors around the state, yes, it may not be for everybody. They may not feel comfortable doing that, but if you are, and you glad hand around the state of Nebraska from Omaha to Gering and all parts in between, and especially Fairbury, this is great. This is a great gig, but if it's not part of what you want, it might not be the most comfortable place, but you can have a great life as an assistant coach here, especially if you're winning.
I do like, Bill, that you use the example of Rhule as one of the assistant coaches we get to hear from, because it's true. Like, you can tell that man does not want to be speaking in front of the media. You can feel the general animosity of him just standing up there the entire time. But that gives us a window into who Donnie Rhule is as a coach. Like,
Right.
he doesn't have time for the BS. He doesn't want to answer questions from the media, but it's a part of the job. He does it. And you get a little window into the soul, if you will, through those 5-minute press conferences that just feel generally slightly like angry is not the word, but just annoyance towards the media.
Well, it's part of the gig, and it's also part of the mentoring. Rhule wants guys to reach the ceiling in their coaching careers, whether it's with him or somebody else. So guess what? Someday you're gonna have to stand in front of a podium and answer a hard question, or what the hell was that question, and figure it out. Public speaking is not for everybody, and it's part of the gig. And yeah, your job is to figure out what happens on 3rd and 3 and can your line win. But
and you got to go
to the mic.
You got to be willing to go buy a winter coat at a sporting goods store in Ainsworth, even if you got 70 of them in your closet back home. Right?
That's such a good story.
He probably had a winter coat in his car and went to the sporting goods store because it was a good photo op. And I'm guessing he can probably afford to buy a South Face knockoff in Ainsworth.
Hey, do you have some boots that are a little more worn looking, so that it looks like I just didn't buy them?
Part of the gig, bro.
Get me a white buck hat like Lou Ellen from No Country for Old Men, and let's go get a tight end. I love it, man. Let's wind it down. It's the Average Joe Sports Show Sunday Live. It is now 27 minutes till tip-off in Madtown. 2:30 for the AFC, check that, NFC championship game, and then 2 o'clock, I should say, Central, and then Sharpie, your Chiefs, brother. They are working to get back to back. In front of them is Mr. Joshy Allen. How are we feeling today?
Well, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. So that's how I feel as a Chiefs fan.
Wow.
Look at that.
You know, we had a lot of people that were on our side. Yes. We had a lot of people that were on our side that were rooting for Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. It was a good story. They love Andy Reid. And then the Chiefs just kept winning, and all of a sudden the mouthpieces for the NFL started talking about officiating, and we have to hit them with facts. Today's going to be very difficult. I will say this. All the interaction that I've ever had, and I only know a couple of Bills fans, like personally, they're very passionate. They love their team. If it's not Kansas City today, I hope it's Buffalo. I hope Buffalo makes a run. But you never count out Patrick Mahomes, but it's going to be tough today. I mean, Buffalo's a really, really good team. Their edge rushers scare me. I still got 15. I still got 87. I still got Andy Reid. I still got Arrowhead. I still have the fact that Mahomes has beaten Allen in the playoffs. I just think today, this is the day that Josh Allen puts on the Superman cape and validates Craig Bohl, by the way. A lot of people were like, Josh Allen will not be a good quarterback for you. Craig Bohl took a chance on him, and you saw what Josh Allen's become. I think this is probably a day where Josh Allen shines and has one of his greatest moments. And I think Buffalo wins in Arrowhead today. This is a Chiefs fan, diehard Chiefs fan saying this. I have that feel today. But if the Chiefs win, the Chiefs will win the Super Bowl. Fair. Because then it's inevitable. And you're like, my gosh, this team has a lot of flaws, but they've hit the heater at the right time and they're playing well, because it's going to take their best effort today. They can't screw around today and think they're going to beat Buffalo.
I just think Kansas City's defense has been so good this year. The pass rush. You're leaning towards it's now Buffalo's time, and I get it. I totally understand it, but I think Kansas City's defense might have something to say. They have been incredible all season long.
In Spags, we trust.
Elijah, you're gonna smack me.
It's the question kind of to me, because the Chiefs have won a lot of games ugly this year. A lot of close games. You look at it and you say, man, how are the Raiders able to hang around? Man, the Broncos almost beat you in Arrowhead. It's been a lot of that this season. Till now. There is a skill to going and winning close and winning ugly. And yes, you have Patrick Mahomes, but it comes down to that Chiefs defense. Spagnuolo getting creative with his blitzing package. I mean, we're talking about an assistant coach maybe being a Hall of Famer. Like, that's the kind of impact he's had in the Chiefs defense. That front seven's scary. Question today is the old adage of offense wins games, defense wins championships. Is that true? Because the Bills can put up some points, and they probably will put up some points today. Can the Chiefs defense allow that Chiefs offense to it's tough whenever you have Patrick Mahomes. I don't want to say hang around, but can the Chiefs defense give some runway to that Chiefs offense so that they can play the way that they want to play, which is dink and dunk you down the field a little bit. It's not as explosive as it used to be. Can that Chiefs offense do that on the back of the Chiefs defense, allowing them to do that, I guess, if you follow what I'm saying?
Yep. We all Washington fans today, aside from the folks in Beatrice, and we love Cam, but Philly fans tough to take. And Jalen's been fun, man. That Washington team's been fun.
I'm pulling for the Eagles personally. Love Cam. Also, if you're a line of scrimmage guy, if you're a Big Ten guy, you gotta love the Eagles. I don't like Nick Sirianni is the problem. And Philly fans wear on you, but I think
Philly fans my problem.
Now,
I like the way they play, and I love seeing Saquon in the open field.
I'm in this. Look, I'm in the Sirianni. I may not be a fan of his, but I'm going back to my whole Ryan Day, Ohio State, Michigan thing. I mean, the guy gets into the Super Bowl, then he loses 2 games. They want to fire him. And if they win the Super Bowl and then go 0-2 to start next year, they're going to want to fire him, just like Ohio State's going to want to fire Ryan Day if he loses to Michigan next year. So I'm rooting for interesting on that. So I like the Sirianni comeback. From where he was at the beginning of the season, yelling at their fans, a total Philly guy. You know, the whole, I just enjoy the drama of fans and the relationship they have with their coaches sometimes. And this one, like Ohio State, is kind of from afar. So have at it. Go win a Super Bowl, then go 0-2, lose to Brian Schottenheimer and the Cowboys in the season opener, and see how much they love Nick Sirianni when he's polishing a Lombardi trophy. I think that would be delicious. So, but you know, Daniels is a great story. He's everything that Caleb Williams was supposed to be and will never be. So I think that the job that they've done in Washington to turn that thing around as quickly as they have is pretty remarkable. I'm kind of a long-suffering from afar Bills story fan. Like, go get it done. You know, go get it done for that community. Yeah. And Josh Allen's a very likable guy. So I just wish it was snowing and miserable down there, because I think playoff games should be played like that if it's outdoor.
Well, get your wings, get your beer, get your vittles ready for one more Sunday of football. That
just no Taylor Swift cutaways, please.
Wrong answer.
I'm over it.
But they've shown her less and less. I mean, they had Caitlin Clark and Taylor Swift sit next to each other, and they barely showed them.
Yeah, I appreciated that. I
don't care who they're going. I don't care. I'm done with it. I don't need to see her reaction to a touchdown. I'm sure she's happy.
You know what? To me, it's if Travis Kelce does something, permission to show the family, because you'll do that with other people as well. Just don't treat it like any other NFL player. You know, Travis Kelce catches a touchdown. I'd love to see Taylor Swift's reaction. Awesome. Isaiah Pacheco runs for a first down. I don't need to see Taylor Swift. I will say, though, on the other side, how about Jaden Daniels, rookie quarterback making the conference championship game? He joins an illustrious list of rookie quarterbacks to make a conference championship game that includes Mark Sanchez, Brock Purdy, Sean King, Joe Flacco. An illustrious list for Jaden Daniels to join there.
Hey, don't you guys? This will be right in the wheelhouse of Bill and Schmidt. Isn't Jaden Daniels having a Magic Johnson 1980 run?
Love it. Yeah, that is.
You remember what he did as a rookie? Like, and this is a fun. Yeah, this is a fun story for Washington, but it seems a little hollow because they had such crappy ownership. And the more they win, the more that he suffers, which is great because he's a horrible human being. But they've made it this far, and they're the Commanders. You know, they're not the Redskins. They're the Commanders. But the one thing about Washington, and Daniels is so good, and now he's set the standard that all rookie quarterbacks will be judged by, and I think that's unfair, is how many other Commanders can you name? I'll give you Terry McLaurin, go. That's why I say he's like carrying this team.
Brian Robinson?
Yeah. But see what I'm getting at? Like, it's a team that is winning. They just won Detroit, and you're like, oh, they got Jaden Daniels and they got a really good team and a coach that I'm sure all Cowboy fans would love to have the backward hats guys standing on the sidelines. Yes, Charles says Luke McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey, guys, make it to the Super Bowl.
Slot receiver, baby. That's right. I said slot receiver. I've always kind of liked Ertz at tight end. And Eckler. I mean, Eckler was born in Lincoln. So, but they've been.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Mike Eckler was born in Lincoln?
No.
Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler, excuse me. We got Mike on the phone.
Yeah. But I think Mike was David City. But
I want to say Eckler moved out to Colorado at a very young age. Like was born in Lincoln, but does not have any memories of Lincoln. Something along those lines.
We claim Nick Nolte. It doesn't matter. I mean, if it's like birthright citizenship. You know,
well,
we were passing through, and mom had
the Nick Nolte reference for the win today.
Do we claim Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, I do.
Yes, and we claim Wade Boggs.
Right, that's another
Wade
one.
Boggs. Yeah.
Nick Nolte hung around long enough to get kicked out of Benson. Or
that's
Benson.
terrible.
Was it Benson? Yeah.
But no, with Lane, we when he was coordinating for SC, he was the designated coach to talk to the Nebraska media. And Lane's like, hey, just because I was born here doesn't mean I know Nebraska super well, you know. But
a couple of quick things here. One, Cam Jurgens is questionable today.
Right.
Yep.
Like it'll be a game time decision. Game Dog said West Side. So he got kicked out of West Side, I think went to Benson. Hoiberg just said on the radio that Hoiberg, his recruited son and Andrew Morgan are going to start today.
Good.
Okay.
But they will have 3 other guys that will start with them, if you're wondering.
It's not 2v5.
No, it's not just like, hey, we're in the 5-game losing streak. Screw you guys. We're going to play 2-on-5. And you know what? If we lose, we lose. But we're going to play with the 2 guys that I like the most.
My team is on the floor. Gene Hackman, Hoosiers, 1984. Yes. My team is on the floor.
It's me and the junior mayor. That's it. All right.
One last point for me as well. This is an aside. Gary talked about the fact that it's the Commanders, not the Redskins. Let's go back to Washington football team. I actually kind of liked that.
Yeah.
I liked it was a little bit unique to have a team that didn't have a mascot. Let's go back to the Washington football team and be unique. It's kind of fun. Anyway, I digress.
Do you think their new owner, because they're trying to make a move to a new stadium, which I don't know if you guys have been to FedEx Field.
Drove by
it's a behemoth, and there is no personality to it. I wonder if they try and bring back the Redskins. Charles brought that up in the stream because I don't know.
Good luck.
I don't know. They're showing, like, CBS has been showing throughout the week, like, old highlights of Art Monk.
The Hogs.
Yeah.
I love the
yeah.
Hogs.
I mean, and that's the Redskins. I know it's not PC, but I mean, you made it to the cusp of going back to the Super Bowl and you're the Commanders. But good for them. Those fans, just like Buffalo, that's why if it's Kansas City, Philadelphia, y'all going to hate us for 2 weeks. If it's Buffalo and Washington, it might not be the ratings driver, but man, how cool is that for both of those fan bases?
No, it'll be a nice change of pace potentially.
And as a former ad PR major, I'll say you can go back to the Redskins if you handle the PR right. If you treat it as like your franchise as respecting the Native American culture, you have some partnerships with them. You can PR it right. You can go back to Redskins and no one will complain. The problem was you had Dan Snyder at the top who did not handle the PR well at all for the name Redskins. If you go back and just, treat that culture with respect, have some partnerships, make sure that their voice is heard as a part of your football team, you can go back to it. But
all right.
Yeah, and
on that note,
real quick,
Game Dog nails it here.
Before we say goodbye, I think Nebraska baseball is going to have a good season. Okay, now we said we talked baseball, so now we can close out the show.
We'll dive a little further into baseball next.
Promises paid, promises kept.
Yes. Assuming basketball goes how I think it will over the next week, we won't have football to talk next week, and there's like transfer portal additions. Great weekend for baseball next week.
We'll get ready for the diamond for sure. It's Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Subscribe, like the Average Joe Sports Show. We are trucking towards a milestone number with subscriptions. So please be a part of that. Tell a friend about the show, and also give us a thumbs up, down, comment, whatever you want to do on the podcast as well. Spotify, iTunes, when you search the Average Joe Sports Show, and follow on Twitter, the AJ Sports Pod. Sharpie, have a good one this afternoon. Billy D, appreciate you.
Thank you,
Elijah,
especially from
much.
the Bronco person on the panel. Thank you for the encouraging texts, and you can root for us today. Thank you.
That's all good. And appreciate all of you.
Allegations in
the stream. Thanks for being
Libel.
a part of it with us this morning. On the Sunday Live, we'll holler at you midweek this week here on the Average Joe Sports Show. Have a good one.